Hi there, I'm Pamela and we're in my kitchen again where I share with you some of my favorite recipes or those most requested by friends and family. Today we're going to be making a family favorite. My husband's Greek grandmother has taught me to make several sweet and savory recipes through her broken English. We managed to do this, and I've got a recipe today for a Greek beef stew called stefado. And it's super easy to put together. It doesn't take very long. It just cooks in your oven for 3 hours on a low heat. It tastes amazing, and I thought you would enjoy having this recipe. So let's get started. So you need a heavy pot. It can be your soup pot or whatever, but something heavy with a heavy lid. We are going to slow roast this in the oven, and we want the lid and the pot to be on the heavy side. My husband's grandmother would actually make a paste of flour and water and kind of glue her lid down. She'd put it around here and then put the lid on, and it would seal it up. So if you've got a lid and it's got a little vent hole or something in it, stuff a piece of aluminum foil or something in there and block that hole so the steam doesn't escape. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a good quality olive oil. You need a 1/4 cup, and use extra virgin olive oil. And we're just going to pour this in the bottom of our pot. This is a slow drizzle here. Okay. There we go. Now, if you have a large family, you can make 1.5 times this recipe, or you can double it if your pot will accommodate that. We're using 2 pounds of beef chuck today. So sometimes I do 3 pounds or even 4, but you just have to change all the ingredients, of course. So we've got our olive oil in the bottom of the pot, and I have already started to cut up some of the meat because I didn't think you'd want to watch me do that. So it's just in like 2-inch chunks. Some of them are going to be smaller because you cut around the fat on the chuck. You don't want to throw big chunks of fat in there. And so, you might have some smaller pieces that you didn't want to waste. But anyway, just put that in there. And I'm going to cut up just a little bit more so I have 2 pounds worth. And like I said, this is a super easy recipe to double. It's great leftover, so you might just want to make more so that you have some the next day. Okay, so I've got my beef sitting on top of my olive oil. And just for time's sake, I'm not going to use all of this. So the next thing we're going to do is toss in some fresh garlic cloves. I would say anywhere from 3 to 5. And just slice them in half if they're large. So we're just going to throw these cloves on top of our beef. And then we've got boiler onions or white pearl onions. They come in a bag like this. You just want small onions. You don't want to use a whole onion. It's too big. You don't want to cut the onion up because we don't want the pieces of onion floating all through this. We want solid little cooked onions in here. So these work really well, white pearl onions or boiler onions. And I put about a dozen in, 10 to 12. Don't leave out onions. If you're not a garlic or onion fan, either don't make the recipe or make it and just pick out the onions and the garlic and don't eat it. But you need it for the flavor. You definitely need it. So anyway, I have cleaned all these onions. That was just the one. I'm going to just pour them in here on top. I'm going to add some salt and pepper. This is to taste, but I would recommend for 2 pounds, at least a teaspoon of salt. maybe a little more. And the pepper, about a half a teaspoon. Now, we're going to just stir this up. The olive oil that's sitting on the bottom is going to coat the beef, the onions, the garlic, and the salt and pepper will get dispersed through this. Now, some of you may be saying she's not going to brown the meat. And I'll be honest with you, when I first watched Grandma make this recipe, I said to her, "You're not going to cook the meat in the pan first and get it brown?" "No, no, 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 no," she said, "no." So I asked my mother-in-law, because she spoke very fluent English, and she said, "No, you just don't need to do it. The flavor's so good, you don't need to do it." And I never have done that with this recipe, and it's delicious. Now, I'll be honest, when I make other stews and I need to cook meat, I will always brown it first. But 40 years I've been making it this way. Grandma didn't, my mother-in-law didn't, and it's just not necessary. But if you want to do that on your stove, go for it. It won't change anything. You can brown the meat if you really want to, and then put it in the pot just like I did. Okay, so now we have 8 ounces of tomato sauce. And we're going to add a 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar to this. Just pour it in. And we're going to add cinnamon. Now, that may seem peculiar to you, but this is what gives the dish a very distinctive but subtle flavor. Cinnamon's not overwhelming. About a teaspoon is what I put in, but if you're apprehensive, just start with a half a teaspoon. But it's a lovely flavor, and you have to put it in. Don't leave it out. Don't leave anything out. Make this the first time with everything in it, and then if you don't care for it, but I think you're going to love it. I really do. We're going to use 1 large bay leaf. Just drop it in on top of your meat and onions and garlic. And we've got, now my mother-in-law was kind of thrifty, and she would take her can of tomato sauce and pour it in, and then to clean the can, to get the last little bits of tomato sauce out, she would add a little water, like maybe a 1/4 cup of water. So I sometimes will add a little bit of water, but I think that was her just wanting to get every last little bit. So there, I've mixed this up. You just want to get the cinnamon mixed in. Cinnamon tends to stay on the top. Okay, that's mixed in. We're going to pour it right over the beef. And we are going to put a tight-fitting lid on this and bake it in our oven for 2 to 3 hours at 300. Do not open it up and look at it until it's baked for 2 hours at least. Take a look and put a fork in one of the pieces of beef, and if it's tender and to your liking, then it's done. 2 hours is fine. But depending on the size that you cut the meat, it may take a little longer for it to get to that point of really tender. So just stir this around so everything's coated, and we're going to put the lid on it and put it in our oven and just enjoy the smell wafting through your house while this is cooking, because it's an incredible smell. There we are. It's ready to go in the oven. 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours later, we'll take it out. Okay, our stefado has baked in the oven for almost 3 hours. I checked it at 2.5 and it was looking really good, so I gave it another 15 minutes. I've taken it out and it is bubbly and the meat is tender. It's very juicy, and It is delicious and the house smells wonderful. Now, what we normally do when we eat it, and that was the custom with my husband's family, is we get a crusty loaf of bread and cut it up and use that to dip into the sauce or the gravy. And I just uploaded last week a recipe for no-knead Dutch oven bread. If you'd like to try your hand at it, it's a very easy recipe. Doesn't take much hands-on time at all. But if you just rather go to the bakery and get a fresh loaf of bread, that's great. Or if you're not doing grains and you'd like to serve it with rice or mashed potatoes or noodles, that works too. We always cook a vegetable, and I make a Greek salad or a green salad, and it's a wonderful meal. Well, I hope you try the recipe, and if you are enjoying my videos, please give them a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon for my next video. Bye.